On November 14, 1979, Atari engineer Jed Margolin proposed a new arcade game which he called First-Person Space War. He describes a game in which, quote, "the player is assumed to be in the cockpit of a space fighter and is pitted against a similar fighter controlled by the computer. Also, two cabinets could be linked together." The game would have vector graphics, like Atari's Battlezone, which was in its final stages of development. The most important detail of the memo comes near the end. Quote, "a tie-in with one of the space movies, such as Star Wars II, might be desirable." The project was greenlit, and development began in May of 1980 with the working title Warp Speed. Very little happened for a year and a half because the engineers assigned to the project were busy working on Battlezone and then a cocktail cabinet version of Battlezone. It was not until July 1st, 1982 that a fateful agenda item hinted at the success story the game would become. That day's project notes mention that the team has begun, quote, "working on conversion to Star Wars theme." A recognizable outline of the final game emerges in a September update, sketching the structure of its 3 levels: a dogfight, strafing runs on the surface of the Death Star, and the famous flight through the trench. So nearly 3 years later, Jed Margolin's project got what he envisioned for it: a movie tie-in. Let's return to 1983's Star Wars through the lens of its music and sound. One advertising flyer proclaims, quote, "Star Wars features random music. A song will be repeated no more than once every 7 minutes, in stereo, and the music is taken from the original Star Wars soundtrack." Now, there are at least 2 lies in this advertising copy. First, the music of Star Wars is anything but random. Perhaps that's why the word is in scare quotes. In practice, the game is underscored by a series of short, recognizable fragments of John Williams' soundtrack. Each theme lasts only 10 to 20 seconds, and contrary to the claim of randomness, they occur in precisely the same order each time, separated by several seconds of silence. There are even clear narrative correlates. The transition from the first stage of the game to the second, for instance, is underscored by the very same battle music that accompanies a squadron of X-Wings turning downwards to attack the Death Star in the film. Next, regarding the length of time, there is some degree of adaptive variability in the game. If a player takes longer to clear a given wave, they might hear a few more themes. But even the slowest playthrough of Star Wars takes only about 3 minutes. While the music may be lacking a bit from what it could be, the selection of dialogue reproduced from the movie is impressive for 1983. Star Wars is one of several Atari cabinets to use the Texas Instruments TMS 5220 sound chip. This chip allowed developers to digitize recorded speech, pausing to clean up the algorithm's many errors frame by frame. As one memo describes the system, quote, "the sound quality is a little unnatural, but preserves some of the speaker's identity and expression." Through this grainy synthesis, Obi-Wan Kenobi advises the player. Darth Vader growls menacingly. The dialogue reacts to the player's performance. Taking a hit will sometimes cause Luke Skywalker to say, "I'm hit, but not bad. R2, see what you can do with it." And should the player make it through to the end of the game, they'll hear Han Solo give the all-clear to take the shot that will destroy the Death Star. "You're all clear, kid!" An achievement that will be greeted with another appropriately timed, anything but random, soundtrack sample from the film.